All right, everybody. Breaking news, hot off the presses. I think this was mostly expected at this point, but we have some degree of resolution in the Deshaun Watson case. He will not face criminal charges, and one of the major stumbling blocks for him getting traded is now out of the way. Now, there's still a matter of civil court. And this is important for any possible Watson trade, he still has to deal with the possibility of the NFL suspending him for conduct detrimental. You do not need criminal charges to be suspended by the NFL, as we well know. But at the very least, Deshaun Watson is not going to face criminal charges. Now, this video is not going to be about whether or not I think he's guilty. That is a separate discussion to me. The legal system has played out, and it has decided that he will not be charged with any of the things that he has been accused of. And you can feel about that however you want to feel. But the fact that he is not getting charged, plus the fact that it is getting reported everywhere that the Seahawks are interested in trading for him, means that this is something that needs to be discussed. So now that this is out of the way, that's one of the barriers down to trading for Deshaun Watson. And we have heard from many, many sources over the last 3 days that Seattle is very, very interested. Now, we have some other stuff to work through as well. Don't get ahead of yourselves, guys. Houston would need to be willing to trade him to us, and I think they probably would be, but the compensation needs to be right. This is a guy who has not played football in a year. This is a guy with very low guarantees on his contract, or a very low signing bonus, which means that we would inherit a huge percentage of his salary, which is different from most other contracts that you see in the NFL. If Houston is keeping the same energy that they had before, where they turned down 3 first-round picks and 3 third-round picks for Watson, then no. Then they can sit there and let him rot on the bench for the next eternity for all I care. Don't care at all. Do not sell multiple farms for Watson. You're going to have to sell the farm, but you don't need to sell multiple farms at this point. If Houston is not willing to be real about the asset that they have here, which is a great asset, but a depressed asset, then we absolutely need to walk away. So for me, personally, I'm looking at Watson. I'm looking at the fact that he's probably going to face a suspension. You may be looking at him missing the first 4 games of 2022. I'm thinking I would give up 3 first-round picks. I would give up 2 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders. Maybe a little bit more. But if Houston is thinking they're going to get full value for this guy when he just took a year off, is still going to get suspended, and by the way, is something of a risk to reoffend if he is indeed guilty of the things that he has been accused of, then you got to let them live in dreamland, or you got to let another team decide to take that risk. We can't afford to get this wrong, period. So if Houston's willing to say 3 first-rounders flat, okay. Give them the 2 picks we have. Give them the 2 picks we have in 2023 and the pick we have this year. Okay. If Watson is Watson, then he's worth that. If it's 2 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders, okay, that's basically flipping the Wilson asset for Watson plus Fant and Harris. That's actually a great trade. Objectively speaking, Watson is better, younger, a little bit cheaper. He would be cheaper for us. And just looking at it in terms of pure value, that is actually a superstar trade. And if we pull that off, I will take back many of the negative things that I've said about John and Pete. Now, that being said, we also have to get Deshaun Watson to clear his no-trade clause to come to Seattle. And as I commented on my last video, there is no guarantee of that. Now, the only other team that I know of that is really going for Watson is Carolina. They are the only other team that I know of that is trying to take this home run swing. There are some other teams that are probably going to be interested. I think that Cleveland might be interested. You might see Arizona be interested if they want to flip Murray. Um, they would probably end up doing like a straight up QB trade and throwing a couple extra assets, but Arizona could be on the list. Maybe Philly, because clearly they're not sold on Jalen Hurts. But the only teams that I've heard are definitely going for Watson are the Seahawks and the Panthers. I'm assuming that the Colts are a no-go because they're in the division. And other AFC teams are somewhat less likely because you don't really want to trade a superstar in conference, which I don't totally agree with that philosophy, but a lot of teams subscribe to it. So you're looking at the Seahawks and the Panthers right now, definitely. I would be shocked if Watson would waive his no-trade clause for Carolina. I don't know why he would be willing to do that. That's a team with a lame duck head coach who is clearly bad and is basically being kept for no other reason than that they gave him a giant contract. I don't see a whole lot going on with that team right now. They're building a decent defense, but their offense, it's I don't know really what they have. They paid a bunch of money to a running back who's made out of paper mache. If Watson has to choose between Seattle and Carolina, even with all the stuff I said earlier today about Carroll and John doing something to alienate these players, I suspect he would choose Seattle. Or he would say neither. But I don't think he's picking Carolina. So if Watson really wants out of Houston, which he does, he's said as much. He's made it very clear he wants out of Houston. And Seattle is his only choice other than Carolina, I think he would say, okay, send me to Seattle. Could be wrong. We don't know. But comes to Seattle, he gets to play with Metcalf. Probably still gets to play with Lockett in that case. We got Noah Fant. And obviously, we would have to do some work this offseason to build up things like the offensive line and the running back stable. But I think that stuff would appeal to him more than what some of these other teams could appeal. Now, if Pittsburgh gets involved, that's a little bit tougher. He might rather go to Pittsburgh. If maybe he would be okay going to Cleveland because that team has a nice little roster. They got a great running game that they can really protect Watson with as he tries to find his way back into the NFL. But as of right now, I think that the path is starting to open up for acquiring Deshaun Watson if you're the Seahawks. A couple more things we got to work through here. We got to get Nick, Casario to agree to a sensible, reasonable trade. I'm not going to sell more than one farm for Watson, like I said. If they still want their 4 first-round picks or whatever ridiculous asking price they had, then you got to be willing to walk away and wait for them to come down. And Watson may not want to come here. And honestly, if he didn't want to come here, I would have to say there are a couple of legitimate reasons why. But we got to take our shot now. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to probably talk about this more in a future video, but the Seattle Seahawks, over the next week, should do one of two things. One of two things. Do not do neither, do not do both, but do one of these two things. Either trade for Deshaun Watson or trade Tyler Lockett. Do not do both. Do not do neither. Do one. Either you go in and say we're going to try to win the Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson, or you say we're tapping out for the year, let's trade Lockett for assets and blow it up. All right, let me know what you guys think down below, but no criminal charges for Deshaun Watson. One of the biggest obstacles to trading for him just went down. See y'all later. Go Hawks.